I woke up that morning with a quiet hope in my heart. It was my 79th birthday, and I thought maybe this year would be different. The sun was just peeking through the curtains in my small bedroom, casting a soft light on the old wooden floor. I lay there for a moment, remembering birthdays from long ago. When my husband was alive, he would bring me coffee in bed and kiss my forehead. Now, it's just me in this house on Maple Street, in our little town of Willow Creek, Ohio. I got up slowly, my joints aching a bit, like they always do. I put on my favorite blue robe and shuffled to the kitchen. The clock on the wall ticked softly, reminding me of the time passing. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the table. I looked at the phone, waiting for it to ring. My son Tom lives just a few blocks away with his wife, Sarah, and their 2 kids. They must remember, I thought. Last year they came over with a cake. It was small, but it meant something. But the phone stayed silent. I sipped my tea and stared out the window at the neighbor's garden. The flowers were blooming, but I felt a chill inside. Maybe they're planning a surprise. That's what I told myself. I smiled a little, trying to hold on to that idea. Hours passed. I busied myself with dusting the shelves. The house is full of memories. Photos of Tom as a boy, our family vacations. By noon, still nothing. I felt a pang in my chest, like a quiet sadness settling in. Why hadn't anyone called? I decided to walk to the store, maybe buy myself a little treat. The streets were quiet, folks waving hello as I passed. At the corner store, old Mr. Jenkins smiled at me. "Happy birthday, Mrs. Ellis," he said. He remembered from all these years. I bought a small cupcake and walked home. Tears welled up, but I blinked them away. No one at home remembered. When I got back, the house felt emptier than ever. I sat on the porch swing, the cupcake in my lap. The wind rustled the leaves, and I wondered if this was how it would be from now on. Tom and Sarah are busy, I know. Work, kids, life. But today, of all days, it hurt. I ate the cupcake alone. It tasted sweet, but the loneliness was bitter. What had happened to us? That evening, the phone finally rang. It was Tom. "Hey, Mom," he said casually. No happy birthday. We talked about the weather, his job, nothing about my day. I didn't mention it. I couldn't. After hanging up, I went to bed early. The darkness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. Was I becoming invisible? But what happened the next day? Keep listening to find out. I tossed and turned that night, memories flooding my mind. I thought about how we used to be so close. Tom was my only child, born after years of hoping. My husband George and I raised him with love in this same house. We had picnics in the backyard, holidays full of laughter. George passed away 10 years ago from a heart attack. It was sudden, and it broke us both. Tom was there for me then, but lately, things changed. Sarah came into the picture 5 years ago. She's nice, but busy with her career. The grandkids, Lily and Jack, are 7 and 9. They used to visit often, drawing pictures for me. Now it's rare. I wondered if I had done something wrong. Maybe I was too needy. Or perhaps age just makes you fade away. The morning after my birthday, I decided to visit them. I baked some cookies, hoping to bridge the gap. The walk was short, but my heart felt heavy. When I knocked, Sarah opened the door. "Oh, hi, Mom," she said, surprised. No hug, just a quick smile. I handed her the cookies. "Just thought I'd drop by," I said softly. We sat in the living room. The kids were playing video games, barely looking up. Tom was at work. Sarah talked about her day, complaints about the office. I listened, nodding. But inside I felt unseen. Did anything special happen yesterday? I asked gently, testing the waters. She thought for a moment. No, just the usual. My heart sank. They had forgotten. I left soon after, walking home with tears in my eyes. How could they not remember? It was like I didn't matter. Back home, I sat in my chair, staring at the family photo on the wall. We looked happy then. What went wrong? That night, I wrote in my journal words of hurt and confusion. But I kept it calm. No anger, just sadness. Days turned into weeks. Visits were short, calls rare. I felt like a shadow in their lives. One day, I found an old letter in the attic. It was from George, written before he died. He talked about family staying close. Reading it, tears flowed. But then, a shocking secret in the letter. Wait, I'll tell you, Sing. I held the letter close. George's handwriting was steady, full of love. He wrote about a promise we made. To keep the family together, no matter what, he said. And there was something about a hidden savings account. He had set aside money for emergencies, for the family. Only I knew the details now. I wondered if I should tell Tom. Maybe it could help us reconnect? Or would it cause more trouble? I put the letter away, thinking. The isolation grew, but this gave me a spark of hope. In the meantime, small things happened. Sarah called once, asking if I could babysit. I said yes, eager for time with the kids. But when I got there, they were glued to screens. No stories, no games like before. I felt like a stranger. Lily looked up once. "Grandma, why do you look sad?" she asked innocently. I smiled. "Just missing old times, sweetie." She hugged me, and it warmed my heart a little. But after that, more silence. I started going to the senior center in town. Met some folks my age, shared stories. It helped a bit. But family is different. I longed for that connection. One afternoon, Tom stopped by, unexpectedly. "Mom, we need to talk," he said seriously. My heart raced. What was it? He sat down, looking uncomfortable. "It's about the house," he started. "Sarah and I think maybe it's time for you to move to a smaller place." I stared at him, shocked. This house? Our family home? But why? He explained about maintenance, costs. But I saw something else in his eyes. Was there more? I nodded calmly, hiding my hurt. Let me think about it, I said. After he left, I cried quietly. Was this the beginning of something worse? But then I remembered the letter. Perhaps it was time to reveal it. Weeks passed, and the idea of moving lingered. I didn't want to leave. This house held too many memories. I walked through the rooms, touching the walls. George's workshop in the basement, Tom's old bedroom. I decided to talk to a friend at the center, Mrs. Harper. She's wise, lost her husband too. Betty, families change, she said, but you have rights. Don't let them push you. Her words stayed with me. I felt a quiet strength growing. Then one day, Sarah came over alone. Mom, about the house, she said. We could use the space for the kids. Use the space? This was my home. I felt betrayed, but kept calm. Why now? I asked gently. She hesitated. Things are tight financially. Selling could help us. Ah, money. It made sense now. But it hurt deeply. I didn't argue. I'll consider it, I said. That night, I pulled out the letter again. George's secret account was for such times. It had grown over the years. Enough to help, but also to secure my future. Should I tell them or keep it hidden? The next morning, a lawyer called. Tom had set it up. About the house deed. My heart pounded. Was he trying to force me out? I met the lawyer, Mr. Reynolds. He explained options for selling or transferring. But then he said something surprising. Mrs. Ellis, there's an old clause in the deed. What clause? He read it. George had put in a protection for me to stay as long as I wanted. I smiled. Inside, my husband, always thinking ahead. But Tom didn't know. How would he react? I left the office with hope. But tension was building. At home, I baked a pie, thinking maybe invite them over. Talk openly. They came that evening. We ate, chatted. Then I brought up the house. Tom, I can't move, I said calmly. This is my home. He looked frustrated. Mom, it's for the best. Sarah nodded. We need the money for the kids' school. I took a breath. There's something you don't know. They leaned in. What? Tom asked. But what I said next changed everything. Keep listening. I told them about the letter, George's words, but not the money yet. Tom sighed. Dad's gone, Mom. We have to be practical. It stung. Practical over family. The conversation ended awkwardly. They left, promising to think. Alone again, I felt the isolation deeper. But I had a plan now. I called Mr. Reynolds back. Can we update the will? I asked. He agreed. I wanted to ensure the house stayed mine. Days later, another visit from Tom. Mom, we found a nice assisted living place. Assisted living? I was healthy, independent. No, I won't go, I said firmly, but calmly. He argued. You're getting older. It's safer. Safer for who? I wondered. Then Sarah called. Please, Mom, think of the grandkids. Emotional pull. It almost worked, but I held strong. At the senior center, friends encouraged me. Stand your ground, Betty. I did, but then a twist. I found out Sarah had been talking to realtors. How? A neighbor told me. Betrayal hit hard. I confronted her gently. Why behind my back? She apologized, but it felt hollow. Tom came over angry. Mom, you're being stubborn. No shouting, just tense words. I stayed calm. That's it, he said. We'll see what the lawyer says. But the lawyer was on my side. What happened at the meeting? We met at Mr. Reynolds' office. Tom, Sarah, me. He explained the deed clause. Tom's face fell. Dad did that? He asked. Yes, I nodded. For me. They left defeated. But I felt no joy, just sadness. Home alone, I reflected. Aging is hard. Feeling invisible, harder. But I had quiet revenge, staying put. Then Lily called. Grandma, I miss you. My heart melted. Maybe hope. We planned a visit. Just her and Jack. They came. We baked cookies. Laughter filled the house. Tom saw, perhaps realized. Slowly, things mended. Calls more often. Visits longer. On my next birthday, they remembered. Small party, but heartfelt. I felt seen again. The isolation faded. Lesson. Speak up calmly. Hold your ground. Family bonds can heal. This was my true story. Subscribe for more grandma stories. Memories of better days. I remember when Tom was little. He would run into my arms after school, telling me about his day. Those moments were pure joy. Now, as I sat in my kitchen, sipping tea, those memories felt far away. The house was quiet, too quiet. I looked at the photo on the fridge. Us at the lake, fishing, George laughing, Tom holding a small fish. Life was simple then. Willow Creek was a place where everyone knew each other. Neighbors helped. Families stayed close. What time changes things. George got sick, then gone. I managed alone, but it was hard. Tom moved back after college, met Sarah at the local diner. They married, had kids. At first, they included me. Dinners, holidays. I felt part of it. Then, Sarah's job got demanding. Tom's too. Kids' activities filled their days. Visits became fewer. I understood, but it hurt. One day, I found an old album. Flipped through pages, tears coming. There's a picture of my 75th birthday. Big cake. Everyone singing. ... What happened since? Small tensions, I guess. Like when I asked for help with the yard. Tom said he was busy. or when Sarah forgot to invite me to Lily's school play. Little things adding up, making me feel invisible. But then I decided to reach out more. Called Tom, suggested a family day. He agreed. But it never happened. Excuses came. I felt sad, but kept calm. No blame, just reflection. At the senior center, I met Alice. She had similar stories. We all feel it at our age, she said, but we can find new ways. It helped. But family is different. I overheard a conversation that shocked me. I was at their house, dropping off mail. Heard Tom and Sarah talking. She's old, Tom. We need to plan for the future. Plan what? I listened, heart pounding. The house is big. If we sold it, we could pay off debts. My home for their debts. I left quietly, hurt deep. Back home, I cried. Betrayal felt like a knife, but quiet. What to do? Confront or wait? I chose wait. Gathered strength. Days later, they acted normal. I did too. But inside, storm brewing. Extended reflection. I thought about my life. Born in 1946. Hard times, but happy. Worked as a teacher. Loved it. Retired to care for George. Now, this. I walked the town, thinking. Willow Creek has changed. New stores. Young people. I felt out of place. But then a friend invited me to a book club. Small joy. Still, family gap grew. Tom pulled. Mom, can you watch the kids Saturday? Yes, I said. Chance to connect. They came. We played games. Fun, but short. Sarah picked them up. Thanks, she said, rushed, no more. Then another twist. I found bills in my mail. Theirs, addressed wrong. They were in debt. Bad. Understood the pressure. But using me? Calm sadness. I decided to help, but my way. Remembered George's account. Told Mr. Reynolds, can I gift some without losing home? Yes. But before, more conflict. Sarah came. Mom, let's talk money. Bold. I listened. We need help. I nodded. I have something, but what? A new beginning. In the end, we talked it all out. No yelling. Just honest words. Tom apologized. Sarah too. We promised to make time. Visits weekly. Calls daily. On my 80th birthday, big celebration. I felt seen. Loved. The isolation was gone. Aging is part of life, but family makes it better. Lesson. Speak your feelings calmly. It can heal. This was my true story. Subscribe for more grandma stories. If you stayed hooked, please like, share, and subscribe. I sat in my rocking chair that afternoon, looking out the window at the maple trees turning gold. The leaves were falling slowly. one by one, just like the way my place in the family seemed to be slipping away. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired and very, very small. After that day when I overheard Tom and Sarah talking about selling the house, I didn't say a word about it. I kept it inside, like I always do. I told myself they were under pressure. Money troubles can make good people say things they don't really mean. But knowing that didn't stop the ache. A few days later, I had a doctor's appointment. Nothing serious, just my yearly checkup and a little dizziness I'd been having. The doctor said my blood pressure was up a bit. He asked if anything was worrying me. I smiled and said, "Oh, just getting older, I suppose." I didn't tell him about the loneliness. I didn't want to bother anyone. When I got home, I called Tom to let him know. I thought maybe he'd want to hear how it went. The phone rang 4 times before he picked up. "Hey, Mom," he said, sounding rushed. I could hear the kids shouting in the background. "I just got back from the doctor," I started softly. "Everything's okay, but he said my blood pressure is a little high." "That's too bad," Tom replied. "Listen, Mom, I'm in the middle of making dinner. Can I call you back?" "Sure, honey," I said. "No hurry." He never called back, not that night, not the next day, not even the day after that. I sat at the kitchen table with my tea getting cold. I stared at the phone like it might ring any second. It didn't. I told myself he was busy. He has a job, a family, responsibilities. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, he used to care more. A week later, Lily had her school concert. Sarah had mentioned it in passing a month before. I marked it on my calendar with a little red heart. I bought a new cardigan, light blue, because Lily once said it was her favorite color on me. I baked oatmeal raisin cookies, her favorite. That evening, I walked the 4 blocks to the school gym. My legs felt heavy, but my heart felt light. I was going to see my granddaughter sing. I sat near the back, saving 2 seats beside me in case Tom and Sarah needed them. The lights dimmed. The children came out in their little white shirts. Lily stood in the second row, looking so grown up. They sang 3 songs. I clapped until my hands hurt. When it was over, I waited by the door where the families gathered. I saw Lily first. She ran to Sarah, jumping into her arms. Tom was there too, holding Jack on his shoulders. They were laughing, taking pictures. I walked over slowly, holding the tin of cookies. "Lily, sweetheart," I called gently. She turned and saw me. Her face lit up. "Grandma!" She ran over and hugged my legs. I bent down and kissed the top of her head. "You were wonderful, darling." "Just beautiful." Sarah looked over and gave a small wave. "Oh, hi, Mom." She looked surprised to see me. Tom nodded. "Hey, Mom, you came." "Of course I came," I said, smiling. I wouldn't miss it. We stood there for a moment. I held out the cookies. I brought these for Lily. Thanks, Sarah said, taking the tin. We're heading to pizza with some of the other parents. Long day tomorrow. They started walking toward the parking lot. Lily waved goodbye. I waved back until they were out of sight. I walked home alone under the streetlights. The night air was cool. I didn't cry right away. I waited until I was inside. Door closed. Lights off. Then the tears came. Quiet ones. The kind that just roll down without sound. I thought about all the concerts I'd gone to when Tom was little. George and I never missed one. We'd sit in the front row, clapping the loudest. Afterward, we'd take him for ice cream, no matter how late. Now, I was the one on the outside looking in. But something else happened that week that hurt even more. Keep listening. I'll tell you in a moment. The next Sunday, I decided to go to church. I hadn't been in a while, but I needed the comfort of the old hymns. After the service, a few ladies from the women's group came over. "Betty, we missed you," Mrs. Dawson said. "How have you been?" I smiled and told them I was fine. We talked about the weather, the upcoming bake sale. Then Mrs. Dawson leaned in a little. "I saw Sarah at the grocery store yesterday," she said kindly. "She mentioned you might be thinking about moving to one of those senior apartments downtown." My heart stopped for a second. I kept my face calm. "Did she?" I asked softly. "Yes, she said it would be easier for you. No stairs, meals provided. Sounded like they were helping you look." I nodded slowly. That's kind of them to think of me. But inside, I felt cold. They were telling other people before they even talked to me properly. It felt like my life was being decided without me in the room. I drove home with the windows down, letting the air dry the tears I wouldn't let fall in public. That evening, I sat down with a cup of chamomile tea and my journal. I wrote page after page. Not angry words, just honest ones. How I felt invisible. How I missed being needed. How I still loved them, even when it hurt. A few days later, Jack had a small cold. Sarah called and asked if I could watch him for the morning so she could go to work. I said yes right away. I always say yes. Jack arrived with his little backpack and runny nose. We spent the morning coloring, reading books, making toast soldiers with soft-boiled eggs, just like I used to do with Tom. Around noon, Sarah came to pick him up. Jack was napping on the couch under my Afghan. "Thanks, Mom," she said. "You're a lifesaver." I smiled. "Any time. He's no trouble." She looked around the living room. "This house is so big for one person," she said suddenly. "All these rooms. It must be a lot to take care of." I felt my chest tighten. "I manage," I said quietly. "I know, but we worry about you here alone. What if you fell? What if something happened?" I looked at her. "I'm careful, Sarah. And I have good neighbors." She nodded, but I could see she wasn't convinced. After she left with Jack, I stood in the doorway a long time. I thought about what she said. Maybe they really were worried. Maybe it wasn't just about money or space. But then why did it feel like they were pushing me away? The next thing that happened made everything clearer and more painful. Wait for it. I was in the attic a few days later, looking for Christmas decorations early. I wanted to feel something happy. I found a box of old letters tied with ribbon. Letters George wrote me when we were courting. Letters from Tom when he was away at camp. At the bottom of the box was an envelope I didn't recognize. It was addressed to me in Sarah's handwriting, but it had never been opened. I sat on the attic floor and carefully opened it. Inside was a printout from a real estate website, a listing for my house, my exact address, my exact home, with an estimated value circled in red pen. There was a note in Sarah's writing. This could pay off everything and give us breathing room. Talk to her soon. My hands shook a little. They had already looked up how much the house was worth. They were planning before talking to me. I folded the paper and put it back. I didn't feel mad. I felt hollow. I went downstairs and made myself a cup of tea. I sat at the table and stared at the wall. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about George, how he always said this house was for family, how he worked 2 jobs to pay it off early so we'd never have to worry. I thought about Tom as a boy, riding his bike in the driveway, building forts in the backyard. This wasn't just a house, it was our life. The next morning, I called Mr. Reynolds, the lawyer. I asked if we could meet again. He said yes, right away. When I got to his office, I brought George's old letter and the deed papers. I want to make sure no one can force me to sell, I said calmly. Not ever. He looked at me kindly. We can update things to protect you completely, Betty. A life estate. You live here as long as you want, and only after. He didn't finish. I knew what he meant. I nodded. That's what I want. We spent an hour going over papers. When I left, I felt a little stronger. Quiet strength, the kind that doesn't shout. But when I got home, there was a message on my answering machine from Tom. Mom, we need to have a serious talk this weekend about your future. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. His voice sounded tired, maybe even a little annoyed. I played the message twice. Then I erased it. I sat on the porch swing as the sun went down. The sky turned pink and orange. I rocked slowly. I wasn't going to fight with yelling or tears in front of them. But I wasn't going to disappear either. Something big was coming. The talk they wanted. The one I had been dreading. What happened when we finally sat down together? Keep listening to find out. I spent the next few days preparing my heart. I baked bread. I watered the plants. I dusted George's old chair. I didn't want to lose my family, but I couldn't lose myself either. And the weekend came faster than I wanted. The family meeting that broke my heart. The weekend came too soon. Saturday morning, the sky was gray, like it knew what was coming. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table for a long time. My hands wrapped around the warm mug, but inside I felt cold. Tom had said they'd come over around 10. I tidied the house even though it was already clean. I put fresh flowers from the garden in a vase on the dining table. Yellow daisies, George's favorite. I baked an apple pie, the smell filling the rooms with something warm and familiar. I wanted everything to feel like home, our home. At 10 sharp, I heard the car pull into the driveway. I looked out the window. Tom, Sarah, and the kids, Lily and Jack, ran ahead, their laughter piercing the silence. Knocking on the door with excited little fists, I opened it with a smile. Come in, I said softly. Lily hugged my waist. Jack held up a drawing he'd made. A stick figure grandma with a big heart. We sat in the living room first. The kids played on the floor with some old wooden blocks I kept in a basket just for them. Tom and Sarah sat on the couch. I took the armchair by the window. For a while, we talked about small things. School, the weather, how Jack lost a tooth. Normal things. I hoped maybe the serious talk wouldn't happen. Maybe they'd changed their minds. But then Sarah cleared her throat. Mom, she started, we asked to come over because we really need to talk about the future. I nodded slowly. My heart started beating a little faster, but I kept my face calm. Okay, I said. I'm listening. Tom leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Mom, this house is too big for you now. The stairs, the yard, the upkeep, it's a lot. We worry about you here alone. I looked at him, my boy. His eyes were the same blue as George's. I've lived here 48 years, Tom, I said gently. I know every creak in these floors. I'm not struggling. Sarah jumped in. But what if you fall? What if you get sick and no one knows for days? We love you. We want you safe. Safe. That word again. I felt a quiet ache. I have neighbors who check on me. I have the senior center. I'm careful. Tom sighed. It's not just that, Mom. Be honest. The house needs repairs. The roof, the furnace. It's expensive. And, well, Sarah and I are stretched thin. The kids' activities, college funds starting soon. If we sold this place, it could help everyone. You could move to a nice apartment downtown. No maintenance, meals included, people your age. I looked down at my hands in my lap. They were shaking just a little. I folded them together. This isn't just a house to me, I said softly. This is where your dad and I brought you home from the hospital, where we celebrated every birthday, every Christmas, where he took his last breath in our bedroom upstairs. The room went quiet. Even the kids stopped playing for a moment. Sarah's voice was softer now. We know it's sentimental, Mom, but Dad's gone. We have to think practically. Those words landed like a stone in my chest. Dad's gone. Practically. I felt tears trying to come, but I blinked them back. Tom added, we found a really nice place, Maple Grove Senior Living. It's only 10 minutes away. You'd have your own apartment, activities, friends. We could visit more often because we wouldn't worry so much. Visit more often. That almost made me smile, but it was a sad one. They hardly visited now. I took a slow breath. Have you already looked at this place? I asked. Sarah nodded. We took a tour last week. It's lovely. They have a waiting list, but we put your name down just in case. Just in case. Without asking me, I looked at Lily and Jack. They were building a tower, innocent and happy. I didn't want them to hear any arguing. There wasn't going to be any anyway. I don't raise my voice. I appreciate you thinking of me, I said calmly. But I'm not ready to leave my home, and I don't think I ever will be. Tom's face tightened a little. Mom, please don't be difficult about this. We're trying to do what's best. Difficult. That word hurt more than I expected. Sarah reached over and touched my knee. We're not trying to push you out. We just want what's easiest for everyone. Easiest for everyone. I wondered who everyone really meant. We sat in silence for a minute. Then I stood up, slowly. Let's have some pie, I said. It's still warm. They didn't argue. We moved to the dining table. I cut slices, put ice cream on the kids' pieces. We ate. The pie was good, sweet and cinnamon, but no one tasted it much. After the kids finished, Sarah took them to the backyard to play on the swing George built years ago. Tom stayed inside with me. Mom, he said quietly, I know this is hard, but think about it. You'd have less to worry about, and the money from the sale could help us. And you, too. We could set some aside for your care later. Care later. Like I was already fading. I looked at him for a long time. Tom, I said gently, do you remember when you were 10 and broke your arm falling off that swing out there? Dad and I sat with you in the hospital all night. He nodded. Yeah, I remember. We didn't think about money or space. We just thought about you. He looked down at his plate. I went on. This house isn't a burden to me. It's my life, and I'm not ready to give it up because it would make things easier for you. His eyes got shiny, but he blinked it away. Things are really tight, Mom. The credit cards, the car loan, we're drowning a little. I felt for him. I really did. Being a parent is hard. Money worries are heavy. But using my home to fix it, that felt wrong. I'm sorry you're struggling, I said. But selling this house isn't the only way. He didn't answer. We just sat there until Sarah and the kids came back in. They left around 2. Hugs at the door. Lily whispered, I love you, Grandma. Jack gave me a sticky kiss. I waved from the porch until the car turned the corner. Then I closed the door, leaned against it, and let the tears come. Quiet tears sliding down my cheeks without a sound. I felt broken, but not angry, just deeply sad. My own son wanted me gone from the only home I'd ever known. I walked through the rooms slowly, touched the banister George sanded by hand, sat in his chair, looked at our wedding photo on the mantel. That evening, I called Mrs. Harper from the senior center. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said softly, Betty, you don't have to decide anything today. And you certainly don't have to leave if you don't want to. Her words helped a little. The next day, I went back to Mr. Reynolds' office. I signed the papers for the life estate. It meant I could live here until my last day, And only then would the house go to Tom. No one could force me out. Not ever. When I left his office, the sun was shining. I felt a small weight lift. Quiet strength again. But the hurt from that meeting stayed with me. It settled deep. A few days later, something else happened that made me realize how far things had gone. Keep listening. I'll tell you what it was. Sarah sent me an email. An actual email, not a call. It had brochures attached for Maple Grove Senior Living. Pictures of smiling older folks playing cards, eating in a bright dining room, walking in pretty gardens. The note said, "Just wanted you to see how nice it is. No pressure. Love you." No pressure, but it felt like pressure. I printed the pages and put them in a drawer. I didn't look at them again. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today I feel more alone than ever, but I will stay gentle. I will stay me." Weeks passed quietly. Fewer calls, shorter visits. The kids still came sometimes, but always rushed. I kept going to the senior center, made new friends, started a little knitting group, found small joys. But every evening, when the house grew quiet, the sadness came back. Then one afternoon, Lily called me from Sarah's phone. "Grandma," she said, "why don't you come live with us? We have a spare room." My heart swelled and broke at the same time. A 7-year-old noticing the distance. "I love my house, sweetheart," I told her. "But I love you more. We'll spend more time together soon." She seemed happy with that, but I knew things couldn't stay like this. Something had to change. And soon, it did. What happened next surprised even me. Keep listening to find out. I held on to the quiet hope that love could still win, even when it felt far away. The day I found out the full truth, the days after that family meeting felt heavier than any before. I moved through the house like a ghost, touching things, but not really feeling them. The quiet was louder somehow. I kept the radio on low, just to hear another voice. I still baked. I still watered the flowers. I still waved to the neighbors when I walked to the mailbox. But inside, there was a sadness that sat on my chest like a soft weight I couldn't brush off. One morning in early November, the air was crisp and the leaves were almost all down. I decided to sort through some old papers in George's desk. He always kept things organized: tax records, insurance, little notes to himself. I hadn't opened the bottom drawer since he passed. It felt too private. I sat on the floor with a cup of tea beside me and pulled the drawer open slowly. There were folders, yellowed envelopes, a small wooden box with our marriage license. I smiled at that. Then I saw a thick envelope with my name on it in George's handwriting. My heart gave a little jump. I hadn't seen this before. I opened it carefully. Inside was a letter dated 2 months before he died, and several bank statements folded together. The letter started the way he always wrote to me. "My dearest Betty." He thanked me for our life together, He talked about how proud he was of Tom. Then he wrote about something he'd done without telling anyone. He had taken out a second mortgage on the house many years ago, when Tom was in college and we were helping with tuition. But after Tom graduated, George quietly paid it off early with overtime and savings. The house was free and clear long ago. We all thought that. But there was more. George had started a separate savings account. He put money in it every month from his pension, small amounts that added up over 10 years. He wrote that it was for whatever the family needs when I'm gone. Emergencies, help for Tom, or to keep Betty safe in her home. The bank statements showed the balance. It had grown, quietly, steadily. There was enough there to fix any roof, any furnace. Enough to help Tom and Sarah with debts if they needed it. Enough for me to live comfortably here for the rest of my days without ever worrying. I sat back on my heels, papers in my lap, tears rolling down without me even noticing at first. George had protected me even after he was gone. He knew life could get hard. He knew families sometimes drift. But he never told Tom about the account. He wanted me to decide when or if to share it. I folded the letter and held it to my heart for a long time. That same afternoon, Sarah called. "Mom, can we stop by tomorrow? There's something we'd like to show you." Her voice was bright, almost excited. I said yes, of course. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about the money. Should I tell them? Would it fix things? Or would it make them see me only as a solution to their problems? The next day, they arrived right after lunch. Just Tom and Sarah this time. The kids were at a friend's house. We sat in the living room again. Sarah pulled out a folder from her bag. Inside were color printouts, floor plans for a bigger house on the other side of town. 4 bedrooms, big yard, modern kitchen. Tom smiled. "We found our dream house, Mom. It's perfect for the kids as they grow, but we need a bigger down payment." Sarah nodded. "And if we sold this place, we could do it. We'd pay off everything, start fresh. You'd have your own space at Maple Grove, and we'd be close enough to visit all the time." They talked fast, like they'd practiced it. They showed me pictures of the new house, sunny rooms, granite counters, a playground nearby for the grandkids. I listened quietly. My hands were steady in my lap. When they finished, Tom said, "What do you think, Mom? Isn't it wonderful?" I looked at them for a long moment. My son and his wife. People I loved with everything I had. Then I said softly, "It is a beautiful house, but this one is my home, and I'm not leaving it." Sarah's smile faded a little. "Mom, we've been over this." I held up my hand gently. "There's something you need to know." I went to the desk and brought back George's letter and the bank statements. I laid them on the coffee table. Tom picked up the letter first. He read it slowly. His face changed. Surprise, then something like shame. Sarah looked at the statements. Her eyes widened at the balance. "Dad did this?" Tom whispered. I nodded. He wanted us taken care of, all of us. The room was very quiet. Tom put the letter down. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Because I wanted to see if you loved me, or just needed my house." The words came out softer than I thought they would. No accusation, just truth. Sarah's cheeks turned red. She looked down. Tom rubbed his face with his hands. Mom, we've been awful, haven't we? I didn't answer right away. I just looked at him with all the love I still felt. He reached for my hand. I'm so sorry. I got caught up in the stress, the bills. I stopped seeing you. I stopped thinking about what this means to you. Sarah's voice was small. We thought we were helping, but we were pushing. I'm sorry too, Mom. Tears came then, for all of us. Quiet ones. I told them about the life estate I'd already set up. The house would always be mine to live in. After that, it would go to Tom, just as George wanted. But the savings account, I offered it freely. Use it to buy your new house if you want. Pay off what you owe. Start fresh. It's what your dad saved it for. Tom shook his head. No, Mom. That money is for you. For your comfort. Your care. We'll figure our own way out. Sarah nodded. We don't want it like this. Not after how we acted. We sat together a long time. No one rushed to leave. Then Lily and Jack burst in. The friend's mom had dropped them off early. They ran to me first, hugging my legs, climbing into my lap. The room felt warmer suddenly. That evening, they stayed for dinner. I made pot roast, the way George used to love. We laughed a little. We cried a little more. It wasn't fixed all at once. Wounds take time, but it was a beginning. Before they left, Tom hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I'm going to do better. I believed him. As their car pulled away, I stood on the porch in the cool night air. The stars were out. I felt George close somehow. The full truth had come out. Not just about the money, but about how far we drifted and how love could pull us back. But healing doesn't happen in one day. There were still hard moments ahead. What happened in the weeks that followed? Keep listening to find out. I went to bed that night with a lighter heart. Not perfect, but hopeful. Quiet, gentle hope. The slow road back to each other. After that day, when the truth came out, nothing changed all at once. I didn't wake up the next morning to phone calls and hugs and everything perfect. Healing doesn't work like that. It comes in small steps, quiet moments, little choices to try again. The first week was still quiet. I didn't hear from Tom or Sarah for a couple of days. I think they needed time to sit with what they'd learned about the money, about George's love, and about how they'd made me feel. I used those days to take care of myself. I went for longer walks around Willow Creek. The air was cold, but it felt clean in my lungs. I stopped at the little coffee shop on Main Street and sat by the window with a warm cup. People nodded hello. Some stopped to chat. It reminded me I wasn't as alone as I'd felt. One afternoon, I baked cinnamon rolls, the kind with extra icing that Lily loves. I wrapped them up and walked them over to their house. Sarah answered the door, looking a little tired. I brought these for the kids, I said softly, handing her the tin. Her eyes filled up right away. Mom, thank you. She stepped aside. Come in? I went in. The house was messy in that lived-in way. Toys on the floor, dishes in the sink. It felt real. Lily ran in from the kitchen. Grandma! She hugged me tight around the waist. Jack followed, quieter, but he smiled big when he saw the tin. We sat at their table. I watched them eat the rolls. icing on their chins. Sarah made me tea. Tom was still at work. Sarah said quietly, "We've been talking a lot." "About everything," I nodded. "Good," I said. "Talking helps." She looked down at her cup. "I feel terrible. I got so caught up in the stress. I stopped seeing you as a person, just as a problem to solve." Her words hurt, but they were honest. I reached over and touched her hand. "You're human, honey. We all get lost sometimes." She cried then, soft tears. I didn't try to fix it. I just sat with her until she was done. When I left, she hugged me at the door. A real hug, long and warm. That was the first small step. A few days later, Tom called. Not a text, a real call. "Mom," he said, "can I come over?" "Just me." "Of course," I told him. He arrived in the evening after the kids were in bed. He brought a pizza from the place we used to go when he was little. Extra cheese, just like old times. We sat at my kitchen table. He opened the box and slid a slice onto a plate for me. We ate in quiet for a minute. Then he said, "I've been thinking about Dad's letter every night." I waited. I didn't push. He went on. "I got scared, Mom. Money was tight. The kids need things. The house we wanted, it felt like the answer. But I forgot the most important thing. You." His voice cracked a little. I reached across and covered his hand with mine. "Fear makes us do things we don't mean," I said gently. "I know that. I've been afraid too. Afraid of losing you." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "You're not losing me. Not ever again." We talked for hours that night. About money, about memories, about George, about how life pulls people in different directions, but love can pull them back. Before he left, he hugged me so tight I could feel his heart beating. "I'm proud to be your son," he whispered. I cried on the porch after he drove away. Good tears this time. Little by little, things started to shift. Sarah began calling every morning, just to say hello and ask how I slept. Small, but it meant something. Tom started coming over on Saturdays to help with the yard. We raked leaves together, side by side, not saying much, just being there. One Saturday, he brought his old baseball glove from the attic. We tossed the ball in the backyard, like when he was 10. He laughed when I still had a pretty good arm. The kids came more often. Lily and I started baking together every Tuesday after school. She stood on a stool at the counter, flour on her nose, telling me all about her day. Jack liked to sit with me on the porch swing. We'd watch the birds and not need words. He'd just lean against me, warm and small. One evening in December, they all came over for supper. I made chicken and dumplings, George's recipe. We ate at the big dining table that hadn't been full in years. After dinner, we decorated my little Christmas tree together. The kids hung the old ornaments, the ones Tom made in school. We played soft carols on the radio. When it was time to go, no one wanted to. Lily asked if she could stay the night. Sarah said yes. That was the first sleepover in a long time. Lily and I snuggled in my bed reading stories until she fell asleep, her little hand in mine. I lay awake, listening to her breathe. My heart felt full in a way it hadn't in years. Christmas came quietly that year. They spent the whole day at my house. We opened presents by the fire. Tom gave me a new robe, soft blue, just like my old one that was wearing tea. I gave them part of George's savings. Not all of it, just enough to pay off the worst of their debts. Enough to give them breathing room. Tom tried to say no at first, but I insisted gently. Your dad saved it for family, I said. This is what family does. They cried. I cried. We all held each other. The new year came in with snow. Soft, quiet snow that covered everything clean. I stood at my window, watching it fall. I thought about how far we'd come. Not perfect. There were still days when calls were missed or visits short. Life is busy. But the distance was gone. The coldness too. I felt seen again, needed, loved. And I loved them back, deeper than before, because we'd walked through the hard part together. There were more moments ahead, some sweet, some challenging. Aging brings its own roads, but we were on the same path now. What happened on my 80th birthday changed everything all over again, in the most beautiful way. Keep listening to find out. I went to bed that night with peace in my heart. Real peace. The kind that comes slow, but stays. The winter that brought us closer. Winter settled over Willow Creek like a soft, white quilt. The snow came early that year, gentle at first, then deeper. The streets grew quiet, the world slowed down, and somehow that slowness gave us room to breathe, room to find each other again. January started with a big snowfall. I woke up to a world all white and still. The branches on the old maple in the front yard were heavy with snow, bending low like they were bowing to the morning. I made coffee and stood at the window, watching the flakes drift down. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was Tom. Mom, don't go outside today. The roads are bad. I'm coming over to shovel your walk and driveway. I smiled into my cup. I'll make hot chocolate, I told him. An hour later, he pulled up in his truck, boots crunching on the fresh snow. He waved through the window, scarf around his neck, cheeks already red from the cold. I watched him work from the warm kitchen. Shovel by shovel, he cleared the path. When he finished, he came in stomping snow off his boots, bringing the crisp winter air with him. We sat at the table with steaming mugs. He wrapped his cold hands around his. I used to hate shoveling when I was a kid, he said with a little grin. I remember, I said softly. You'd come in complaining, and Dad would make you cinnamon toast to warm you up. He laughed quietly. Yeah, I get it now. It feels good to take care of you. We sat there a long time, just talking. No rush, no place to be. The snow kept falling outside, sealing us in together. That became our new rhythm. Every snowstorm, Tom came over. Sometimes with the kids, sometimes alone. We'd shovel, then come inside for soup or cocoa. Small things, but they stitched us back together. Sarah started coming on Thursdays. She called it Grandma Day. She'd bring her laptop and work at my dining table while I baked or knitted. We didn't talk the whole time. Sometimes we just sat in the same room, the way family used to. One Thursday, the wind was howling outside. Sarah closed her laptop and looked over at me. "Mom," she said quietly, "I need to say something I've been carrying." I put down my knitting and waited. "I was wrong," she said. Her voice was steady but soft. "I let money worries turn me into someone I don't like. I made you feel like a burden. You're not. You're the heart of this family." Tears came to my eyes. I reached for her hand. "You were scared," I told her. "We all were. But you're here now. That's what matters." She cried then. I moved my chair closer and held her while she did. No words needed, just holding. When she stopped, she laughed a little through the tears. "I must look a mess." "You look beautiful," I said, and I meant it. After that, the wall between us came down, really down. February brought Valentine's Day. Lily and Jack made cards at school and brought them over. Big red hearts, glitter everywhere. "I love Grandma" in wobbly letters. We made sugar cookies together, hearts and stars. Frosting got on the ceiling somehow. We laughed till our sides hurt. That night, Tom and Sarah went out for a rare date. The kids stayed with me. We watched an old movie, the three of us snuggled under blankets on the couch. They fell asleep halfway through, heads on my shoulders. I sat there in the glow of the TV, feeling their warm weight, listening to their soft breathing. My heart felt so full, it almost hurt. March came in like a lamb. The snow started melting, little streams running down the gutters. The days grew longer. One afternoon, Tom brought over an old box from their attic. "Found this when we were cleaning," he said. Inside were things from when he was little. Report cards, trophies, drawings he'd made for me. At the bottom was a stack of photos I hadn't seen in years. We spread them on the table. Pictures of birthdays, holidays, vacations at the lake. George in every one. Smiling wide, Tom picked up one of all four of us on the porch swing. "Look how happy we were." "We still are," I said gently. "Just took a little detour." He nodded, eyes shiny. "I'm glad we found our way back." Spring was peeking around the corner, but before it came, we had one more winter moment that sealed everything. It was late March, an unexpected cold snap. Snow again, heavy and wet. The power went out across town. One evening, I lit candles and sat by the fireplace with a blanket. My phone had a little battery left. I thought about calling Tom, but I didn't want to bother them. Then I heard a car in the driveway. Headlights cut through the dark. The door opened, and all four of them came in, carrying flashlights and overnight bags. Family snowed-in party, Tom announced with a grin. We're not leaving you alone in the dark. Sarah had a basket of food. The kids had their pajamas and stuffed animals. We built up the fire, made grilled cheese on the hearth with an old iron, told stories by candlelight. The kids fell asleep on quilts in front of the fire. Tom, Sarah, and I stayed up late, talking softly about everything and nothing. At one point, Sarah said, "This house feels like the safest place in the world tonight." I looked around at the flickering shadows, my family close. "It always has been," I whispered. The power came back on in the morning, but they didn't rush home. We made pancakes and ate slowly, watching the snow melt outside. When they finally left, the house felt empty, but in a good way, like it had been filled up first. Winter had done its work. It slowed us down long enough to remember what mattered. My 80th birthday was coming in May. They were planning something. I could tell by the whispers and smiles. But what they did that day, it was more than I ever dreamed. Keep listening to find out. I stood at the window, watching the last snow disappear. Spring was coming, and so was hope. Real, warm, growing hope. The spring that healed old wounds. Spring arrived gently in Willow Creek, the way it always does after a long winter. One morning, I woke up and heard birds again. Real bird song, not just the wind. The snow was gone. The ground softened, and little green tips started pushing up through the soil in my flower beds. I stood on the porch in my robe, coffee in hand, watching the world wake up. Everything felt new, not just the season. Me too. April brought warm days and soft rain. The maple trees leafed out in that bright, tender green that only lasts a few weeks. I spent hours in the yard on my knees, planting petunias and marigolds the way George and I used to do together. My hands in the dirt felt like prayer. Tom came over most weekends to help. He'd bring the kids, and we'd all work side by side. Lily planted her own little row of sunflowers. Jack dug holes that were mostly too deep or too shallow, but we let him. Dirt under fingernails, laughter in the air. It was medicine. One Saturday afternoon, after we'd finished planting, we sat on the porch steps, eating popsicles. The sun was warm on our faces. Lily looked up at me. "Grandma, are you happy now?" I brushed a strand of hair from her sticky cheek. "Sweeter than this popsicle, darling." She grinned and leaned against me. Simple moments, the best kind. Sarah started a new tradition. Every Sunday evening, she'd come over alone, and we'd cook supper together. Nothing fancy, just whatever was in the fridge. We'd chop vegetables side by side, talking about everything and nothing. One night, we were making spaghetti sauce. The kitchen smelled of garlic and tomatoes, simmering slow. Sarah stirred the pot and said quietly, "I used to dread coming here. I felt guilty every time." I looked at her. And now? Now it feels like coming home. She smiled, eyes soft. I missed this. I missed you. I put my arm around her shoulders. We stood like that, stirring the sauce together. Steam rising between us. May came in with lilacs. The bushes along the side of the house bloomed, heavy and purple. I cut big bunches and filled every room with them. The scent drifted through the open windows. My 80th birthday was on the 15th. I didn't ask about plans. I figured maybe a quiet dinner, a cake, some cards. That would have been enough. But they had been planning for months. The morning of my birthday, I woke to the doorbell. When I opened it, Lily and Jack stood there holding a handmade sign. Happy birthday, Grandma. Follow the arrows. There were little construction paper arrows taped along the hallway, up the stairs, into every room. Each arrow had a note. One in the kitchen, you make the best cookies in the world. One on George's old chair, you loved Grandpa with your whole heart. One on my bedroom door, you taught us how to be kind, even when it's hard. I followed them with tears already starting, smiling through them. The last arrow led to the backyard. I stepped out onto the porch. And there they were. The whole yard was filled with people. Tom and Sarah, the kids, Mrs. Harper and Alice from the senior center, Mr. Jenkins from the corner store, neighbors I'd known for decades, even some of Lily's school friends and their parents. Balloons tied to the trees, white lights strung across the branches, even though it was daytime. Long tables with white cloths, a big banner stretched between two posts. Happy 80th birthday, Betty, the heart of Willow Creek. I stood there frozen, hand over my mouth. Tom walked over and took my arm gently. Come on, Mom. This is for you. They sang happy birthday, loud and off-key and perfect. Lily brought me a crown made of paper flowers. Jack carried the cake himself, tongue sticking out in concentration. 80 candles would have been too many, so they put 8 big ones and one in the middle to grow on. I blew them out in one breath. Everyone cheered. There were no speeches at first, just food and laughter and music from a little speaker playing old songs George loved. Later, when the sun was lower and golden, Tom tapped a glass with a spoon. Everybody, he said, I need to say something. The yard quieted. He stood beside me, hand on my shoulder. This woman, he started, voice already thick, is the strongest person I know. Not because she never cries or never gets scared, but because she loves even when it hurts. She forgives when it's hard. She stays gentle when the world isn't. He looked down at me. Mom, last year I almost lost you. Not to sickness or age, but to my own selfishness. I'm sorry every day for that. But I'm thankful every day that you gave me another chance. Sarah stepped up next. Mom, you welcomed me into this family when I was just a nervous girl dating your son. You taught me what a mother's love looks like. I forgot for a while, but I remember now. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you feel how much you're loved. Lily and Jack came forward with a big card they'd all signed. On the front was a drawing of the house, all of us standing on the porch holding hands. Inside, in Tom's handwriting, "This house will always be your home, and we will always be here with you." I couldn't speak for a long time. I just held the card to my chest and cried quiet, happy tears. Then Mrs. Harper raised her glass. "To Betty, who reminds us that growing older doesn't mean growing invisible. It means growing deeper." Everyone drank to that. We danced that night. Old, slow dances under the string lights. Tom danced with me first, then Sarah. Then Lily stood on my feet like when she was tiny. When the stars came out, people started leaving with hugs and promises to visit soon. Finally, it was just family. We sat around the fire pit Tom had built that afternoon, roasting marshmallows even though we were stuffed. Jack fell asleep in my lap. Lily leaned against Sarah. Tom reached over and took my hand. No one wanted to go home. Sarah finally said softly, "We could all stay tonight, like a big sleepover." And we did. Blankets and pillows everywhere. Kids in Tom's old room. Tom and Sarah on the couch. Me in my bed, listening to the quiet breathing of my family all around the house. I lay awake for a while, lilacs drifting in through the open window. I thought about my 79th birthday, how alone I'd felt, eating that single cupcake from the store. And now this. Life turns slow circles sometimes. It takes you through dark winters so you can feel the spring deeper. I whispered into the dark, "Thank you, George, for the house, for the love, for the family that came back." I fell asleep with a smile. The next morning, we had breakfast on the porch. Pancakes and coffee and sleepy kids. No one rushed. Spring had done its healing. The wounds weren't gone completely. Some scars stay, but they turned soft. Summer was coming, and with it, more days like this. But one more thing happened that summer that brought everything full circle. Keep listening to find out. I sat on the swing later that week, rocking slow, watching the petunias bloom. I didn't feel invisible anymore. I felt rooted, loved, home, watching the neighborhood come alive. The house felt different now, fuller, even when I was alone. Because I knew it wouldn't stay empty for long. June started with a heat wave, the kind where the air shimmers above the pavement. Tom installed a new ceiling fan in the living room for me, and we sat under it, eating watermelon. Juice running down our chins, laughing like we were kids again. One afternoon, Lily asked if we could have a lemonade stand. So we did, right at the end of the driveway. I pulled out the little folding table George made years ago. Lily wrote the sign in bright markers. "Grandma's famous lemonade, 50 cents. We squeezed lemons until our hands smelled like summer. Jack handed out cups with a serious face. Sarah brought cookies to sell too. Tom stopped by after work and bought 10 cups just to make the kids happy. Neighbors came. Old friends. New families. people I hadn't talked to in years. They sat on the porch steps and told stories. By the end of the day, we'd made $23.50 and 100 memories. July brought the 4th. We decided to have a backyard cookout. Nothing big, just family and a few close neighbors. Tom grilled burgers and corn on the cob. Sarah made her potato salad. I baked apple and cherry pies because I couldn't choose just one. We ate at the long picnic table under the maple tree. The kids ran through the sprinkler, shrieking with laughter. When the sun went down, we spread blankets on the grass and watched the town fireworks from the backyard. They burst bright above the rooftops. Red, gold, blue. Jack fell asleep in my lap halfway through. Lily leaned against Tom. Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. I looked around at all of us, lit by the colored lights in the sky, and felt something settle deep inside. This was what George and I always wanted. This, right here. August was the hottest month. The kind where you move slow and drink sweet tea all day. We took a family trip to the lake, the same lake we used to go to when Tom was little. We rented a small cabin for a long weekend. No Wi-Fi, no rush, just water and pine trees and quiet. The kids learned to skip stones. Tom and I fished off the dock like old times. He caught a small bass and let Jack reel it in. Sarah and I floated on inner tubes, talking about everything we'd never had time for before. One evening, we built a campfire on the shore, roasted marshmallows until they were golden and gooey, told ghost stories that weren't too scary, sang old songs off-key. Later, when the kids were asleep in the cabin, the three of us adults sat by the dying fire. Tom poked the embers and said quietly, "I used to think growing up meant leaving all this behind, getting busy, getting ahead. But I was wrong. This is what matters." Sarah nodded. We almost lost it. I looked into the flames. "But we didn't," I said softly. "That's the gift." We sat in silence after that. The lake lapped gentle at the shore. Crickets sang. The stars were thick overhead. On the last morning, we packed up slow. No one wanted to leave. Lily hugged me tight before we got in the car. "Can we come back next summer, Grandma?" "Every summer," I promised, "as long as I'm here." She smiled big. "That's forever then." Back home, the garden was overflowing. Tomatoes red and heavy on the vines. Zucchini bigger than my arm. We canned sauce together one weekend. Jars lining the counter. Steam fogging the windows. Laughter echoing. Sarah learned my mother's recipe for bread and butter pickles. Tom built new shelves in the basement to store everything. We ate dinner on the porch most nights. Fireflies blinking in the yard. The kids catching them in jars and letting them go again. One night in late August, a thunderstorm rolled in sudden and strong. Thunder cracked. Lightning lit the sky white. The power flickered, but stayed on. We all gathered in the living room. Me, Tom, Sarah, the kids. Pulled out candles just in case. Sat on the floor with blankets and popcorn. Jack crawled into my lap, a little scared. I held him close and told him thunder was just the angels bowling, like George used to tell Tom. Lily asked for a story, so I told them about the summer George and I got married, how we couldn't afford a honeymoon, so we camped in the backyard under the stars, how we promised each other forever, right here in this house. Tom listened with soft eyes. Sarah held his hand. When the storm passed, we stepped out onto the wet porch. The air smelled clean. Everything washed new. A rainbow arched across the sky, bright and perfect. Lily whispered, "It's a promise, Grandma." I nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, it is." Summer ended gently. School started again. Routines returned. But something stayed different. We were closer now. Not just visiting. Part of each other's days. I still had my quiet mornings on the swing. But now they were filled with gratitude instead of loneliness. Fall was coming. The leaves just starting to turn at the edges. And with it, one more moment that brought everything full circle. Keep listening to find out. Rocked on the swing that evening, watching the first red leaf drift down. I thought about my 79th birthday again. How far away that pain felt now. Age doesn't make you invisible if you have love around you. And I did, more than I ever dreamed. Looking back with a full heart, the years have a way of softening as they pass. I'm 82 now, sitting in the same rocking chair by the window where I used to watch the world go quiet. Only now, the world doesn't feel quiet anymore. It feels full. Fall came again after that beautiful summer, painting the maple trees gold and red. The leaves fell slow, covering the yard like a warm blanket. We raked them into big piles, and Jack jumped in them until he was covered head to toe. Lily took pictures with her little camera, laughing so hard she could barely hold it steady. Winter returned too, with snow and cold nights. But this time, the house stayed warm, not just from the furnace, but from the people in it. We spent Christmas here again. The tree was bigger, the lights brighter, presents piled high. Stockings hung on the mantel, one for each of us, even one still for George, with a candle beside it. We sang carols, ate too much, stayed up late, telling stories by the fire. When the kids fell asleep, Tom, Sarah, and I sat together with hot cocoa, watching the flames. Tom said softly, "I'm glad we didn't lose this, Mom." I reached for his hand. "Me too, honey. Me too." Spring followed, then another summer. The garden grew. The traditions stayed. Lemonade stands, lake trips, thunderstorms on the porch, rainbows after. Lily turned 10. Jack turned 8. They're growing fast, but they still run to me first with their stories, their hurts, their joys. Sarah and I still cook together on Sundays. Tom still shovels the walk first every snow. The kids still sleep over when they want to. Some days are ordinary. Dishes to wash, laundry to fold, bills to pay. But ordinary feels precious now. I still go to the senior center, still knit with my friends, still walk to the corner store where Mr. Jenkins calls me young lady and makes me smile. But the loneliness that used to sit heavy on my chest, it's gone. Not because life is perfect. We still have worries. Money gets tight sometimes. Health scares come. Arguments happen. But we talk now. We forgive quick. We choose each other every day. One quiet afternoon last fall, I sat in the attic going through old boxes again. I found that envelope with the real estate listing Sarah had printed years ago, the one with my house circled in red. I held it for a long time. Then I took it downstairs and put it in the fire. I watched the paper curl and turn to ash. The past burning away, gentle. That night I wrote in my journal, the same one I used to fill with sadness. I wrote, "Today I am grateful for the hard days that taught us what matters, for the love that came back stronger, for this house that held us through it all, for George, who is still with me in every corner, for my family, who sees me. I am old now, but I have never felt more alive." I closed the book and looked out the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky soft pink and gold. Tom pulled into the driveway with the kids. They spilled out of the car, running toward the porch with shouts of "Grandma." I stood up slowly, smiling wide. The door opened. Arms wrapped around me. Voices filled the house. And in that moment, I knew aging doesn't have to mean fading. It can mean deepening. It can mean roots growing stronger. It can mean love that circles back, wider and warmer than before. If you're listening to this and you feel invisible, please hear me. You are not alone. Speak gently. Hold your ground with kindness. Forgive when you can. Love anyway. Because family can find its way home. It did for me. And if it can happen for an old woman in a little house on Maple Street in Willow Creek, Ohio, it can happen for you. This was my true story. From the forgotten birthday to the full heart I carry now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with me through every quiet tear and every soft joy. If this touched you, if it reminded you of someone you love, please reach out to them today. And if you want more stories like this, real, gentle, true, subscribe for more grandma stories. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs it. Because no one should feel invisible. Not ever. I'm going to sit here a little longer now, rocking slow, listening to the laughter in the kitchen. Lily's baking cookies with Sarah. Jack's telling Tom a long story about school. The house is warm. My heart is full. And life at 82 is more beautiful than I ever imagined. Good night, dear ones, or good morning, or whatever time it is where you are. Just know this: you are seen, you are loved, and you are never, ever alone. This is the end of the story. Thank you for listening to all 10 parts. If you stayed hooked until the very last word, please like, share, and subscribe for more grandma stories.